Thanks for coming to this Green Bay panel. I think it's going to be interesting. Green Bay is the hot spot and the mega spot of Wisconsin, so hopefully we get some good info. That was my my goal when I decided to do a panel instead of just a speaker today. Other than that, enough about me. Let's talk about Green Bay. How many of you have fished Green Bay? Okay. Well, maybe we should move you all up here. We'll have a bigger panel.
Let's just have a powwow.
We got a big old panel here. How many of you have it on your bucket list? Cool. Well, I've been to Green Bay twice and enjoyed it, learned a little bit. You look out there and you see big water and you think, oh, where do you start? Well, that's why we got these guys up here today. And we're going to try to go through this pretty quick. At the very end, we're going to have Kevin and Bob do a little recap of what they think is going to happen in the future. But at the very end, want to have question answer. So if you got some questions, want to hit these guys. Every time I've been on Green Bay, which is maybe 10, 15 days over the period, I've seen all three of those guys just about out there every time. And so they're out there, they know what's going on.
Tell us about the first time you were up there, Tony.
First time was really good. I was up there for the PMTT Championship. Couldn't wait to get to Green Bay. I've been biting my nails, just couldn't wait to get there. And I think it was 2010, 2011. Well, I was guiding up in Vilas County, could not wait to get there. Went out with Dennis Ratliff, which my opinion is one of the best that ever was on there. Yep. And he goes, man, we should be able to get one early this morning. Right at moonrise, my tournament partner, we were pre-fishing the PMTT tournament. He caught one. That was the last fish I heard of, had anybody talking about all the way through the tournament. That tournament that weekend on the greatest body of water in Wisconsin was pulled out of a hat. A $70,000 Ranger pulled out of a hat because no one caught a 34-incher. And, at the meeting of day one, we're looking at each other. Nobody got a 34? And then you listen more, and you hear all the stories of people losing them, seeing them, follows. You heard none of those stories. The liars weren't even out there. And we're thinking day two, oh man, it's Green Bay. Somebody's going to get a 34-incher. Well, nobody did. That whole week I was there, none of the tournament competitors loaded a fish. Pretty amazing. And I don't think I ever heard of anybody even losing a fish. So anyway, I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves. They all got a lot of time on Green Bay. Start out down there at the end. We take advice from him fishing, but not motocrossing. He about killed himself last year. So go ahead. Kevin, introduce yourself and what you do.
All right, Kevin Pischke, born and raised in Green Bay. The only 3.5 years I didn't live in Green Bay, I was actually in Menominee, Michigan, so I was still right in the water. Started out as a little kid in the heyday of the perch fishing, and then just some walleye fishing out there. And when I moved back from Menominee, I've been musky fishing pretty much my whole life, but when I moved back from Menominee in 1998, it's kind of when things were just getting going, and learned a little bit about it and caught a couple accidentally and just built off of that. And this is year 17 guiding for me, but 27 years out there pounding it. And we did mention Dennis already. That's the guy I kind of learned the bay from and grew up, and there's a lot of hit or miss out there. There wasn't instant internet information back then, and he was kind of the guy that coached me, and I just learned it the tough way out there. I've been the low water years, through the high water years, through the good stocking years, the mid 2000s when the bite was just silly down in the lower end, to now that they're scattered everywhere. So that's kind of been my thing. I am a full-time firefighter in Green Bay, which the way our schedule works, even though I'm old now and can't recuperate like I used to, so I do get to spend a fair amount of time out there. I typically average about 600 hours a year on the bay.
Nice.
And that's me. And yes, I do almost kill myself on so.
Jeff, tell about yourself. You're a transplant up here, from what I understand.
My name's Jeff Kozlowski, owner of the Muskie Mafia, and I've been fishing for muskies my whole life. It's one of my passions that I've had since I was a young lad. We have a cabin up in Hayward So I was bred into the muskie fishing. Living in Chicago, it's been a challenge with all the traveling I have to do. There's some good fishing, the Fox chain and this and that, but you always have to travel. Throughout my years with the PMTT and all that, I found my way up here in 2001 was my first time out here, and it was dominantly just the Fox River stuff, in the beginning of the year. And first time I dumped the boat on the river, we put 6 fish in the boat. That was pretty spectacular, and so it just had to keep coming back. And my bit, from 2001 to about 10 years, I pretty much would spend time in the river for the opening, the Fox River, and then would wander out into U Bay when all that stuff was going on out there. But I never really drifted on out into the Bay. Done some stuff up in Little Sturgeon, Big Sturgeon, up in Door County, up that way. I just was driven to find my way up here, and I've been up here now for 2 years. And it's been a great move for me, and Bass Pro has picked me up. I got a lot of people that are helping and supporting me in what I'm doing, and the bay is just an amazing body of water. So I've pretty much have fished anywhere there's a muskie. I've probably been, and just being up here in Green Bay, it's sanctuary for me, especially getting out of Chicago. Now where I'm at right now is right the heart of the good muskie fishing, and I just love being up there. I fished a lifetime fishing for muskies, and this is where I planted myself on Green Bay. And full-time guide up there now, and come on up, man. It's Green Bay, it's just spectacular.
Now, was that forced removal from Chicago? The mafia? Because I know those kind of people usually don't pay taxes, so. All right, Bob, tell about yourself, buddy.
All right, my name is Bob Parteka. I'm from Green Bay. I haven't lived there as long as Kevin. I have fished with both these guys, had the pleasure of fishing with each of them. But I've been living in Green Bay about 20 years and call Green Bay my home waters. I'm not a guide, but I'm a conservationist. I work very closely with the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point on the research on the bay. Helping them identify areas where fish are spawning. Been doing a lot of recon out there over the years, all over the bay, all over. And actually found some spots for them to do some more braided telemetry research last spring, and they're going to be continuing that this spring as well. But I've also been a president of Titletown Muskies Inc. Been very involved in that as well. Also, do some seminars and mainly talking about the history of the bay, where we've come from, where we're at, and where we're headed in the future. So that's about it. All I do is fish for muskies. That's it.
All right, Bob, I see you out there every time I've been there. I know that you spend a lot of time there. I know you've been involved with the clubs, the research, and all that type of stuff. Can you give us a quick background on Green Bay?
Absolutely.
For people that don't know.
Absolutely. Most of the people in here have fished the bay, which is great. And you know what an awesome fishery it is. But few people understand that just 35 years ago, how bleak the future looked for the system. There were absolutely almost no fish in there. Back in the late 80s, the DNR decided to do a reintroduction program. In the late 70s, they reintroduced walleyes. And within under a decade, they'd had very much success doing that. What I mean is success as far as where these fish are actually reproducing naturally, so they can self-sustain. They decided to do the same thing with the muskies. So in the late 80s, they approached some muskie clubs, including the first chapter of Muskies Inc. up in Green Bay, and said, hey, we're looking at doing a reintroduction program. Would you guys be interested in helping out? So we helped out there. We've been instrumental since day one. We have Great Lakes spotted strain in Green Bay. So we ended up doing is getting some fish from the state of Michigan. We got them from St. Clair, Lake Huron, the Indian spread chain, as well as the Ministry of Natural Resources from Ontario. And we got some fish out of Georgian Bay as well. So we just got some fish and brought them down to Green Bay, helped replant them, and from those few first fish, look at where the system is today. At the time, a lot of guys in the Muskies Inc. chapter in Green Bay were adamantly against funneling any money towards this program, because all the guys in the chapter were fishing in Canada. They're fishing up north. They're fishing wherever, Vilas County, Sawyer County. They said you're absolutely wasting money trying to get a fish in this system. You'll never see a muskie out here. And look where we are today. I think it's top 5 fish around the planet right now. So that's where we've come from. So it's looking great. What I always tell people is that it is a success story in the making. We're not quite where we need to be just yet. And we can go into some of the stocking limitations that we have with the DNR, some of the budget cutbacks we've had recently that have been announced. So that's why we exist as an organization, Titletown Muskies, Inc., is to eventually get a self-sustaining population of muskies on the bay. So for all intents and purposes right now, natural reproduction on the bay is statistically zero. Zero. Granted, there are some fish out there that are reproducing naturally, but we just don't have enough data to draw any conclusions as far as, well, is it 7% of the population? Is it 37%? So what we rely upon a lot is, a lot of us have pit tag readers in our boats. We see if the fish have a pit tag in them. We check for clipped fins. That'll tell us if there's a stock fish. So we're actually working diligently now in the past several years and getting more people to actually put pit tags in fish in order to get more data for the DNR, so we can put together a more precise program and figure out where these fish are actually migrating throughout the system. We've had some radio telemetry programs to the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. Took 60 fish, put radio telemetry transmitters in them, and just followed them around and started putting them in 2017 to 2020 was the 4-year program that they had their graduate students working on that. And those fish are still swimming out there now, and those transmitters last for 10 years. So we've still got data that we're getting, great data, that are telling us where these fish are migrating. And the main thing is we want to follow them in the spring, find out where they're spawning and spawning successfully. So we're doing, again, some additional research with UW-Stevens Point on that. And we've actually been able to find some healthy, naturally reproducing fry. So that's a positive note. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Good job. That gives a background of what's going on. Now let's talk about how do we catch the darn things. That's what everybody's here for. And I want to try to keep it short with my questions. That's why at the end, if you've got questions, whether it's towards one guy or whatever, ask the question if it's something you want to figure out. That's what we're here for. I'm going to come up, start right off the bat. Each one of you just give me 2 peak times in the year for you. I know that you're breaking it down into months and weeks. Give me 2 and just a brief detail of what you're going to do during those 2 times. Kevin, let's start down at your end.
All right, so I'm just going to go right past opener because we don't need to discuss that.
I will.
I don't get along with people well, so I go get lost on the bay that time of year. But anyway,
you mean it gets crowded up there?
what? Yeah. So I am going to go with, and it all depends on how long the ice is going to stick, and then the clarity of the water and the amount of warmth and sunshine.
Yep.
So if we have an early ice out year, we got some good weather, those weeds are going to grow faster than they normally do. And a lot of that has been affected by the water being high and low, and now weeds are kind of moving around again. But if we have that, what makes opener stink because it's already kind of too warm, but that's going to give us good weeds by the 4th of July. And I love that late June, early July, if we have those good weeds, that's awesome because a lot of people aren't out there targeting them yet. And those fish, they did their spawn, they went out and got lost, and now they're moving up on the weeds. And they're not bait shy. Give it by the end of July, mid-August, when you're playing bumper boats out there, they're getting real bait shy. So I really love that time slot. Just ruined it, right? But if that happens, that's probably my favorite casting because you can get out there earlier. Like I said, those fish are a little more fired up. They're not as bait shy. That can be really good. And then obviously that first week, depending on when the moon cycle falls, but right after Labor Day, when everybody kind of switches over to trolling, that's just that magic time, and that takes me back to that early to mid 2000s when you could have, early on I was not guiding, just fishing for fun. You'd have 7, 8 fish days. It was magical. Freaking other guys would say, Dennis, again, we would have 16, 18 fish days. That period kind of takes me back to that, starting out there, kind of getting into it, kind of reminiscent. But that's like the trolling time. That early, just look where that moon falls. Let the Labor Day traffic get out of there. Hopefully that sandgrass isn't tearing up. And just that week and a half, 2 weeks, early September that's my favorite trolling time of the year. That's kind of my thing. What else did you do? I'm sorry, Tony.
You're good.
All right.
Jeff, let's go to you. What's your peak times you like out there?
So obviously, opener, if we have a warm spring, the fish aren't, the fish have already left the tributaries, the Fox River and all that. We have a a late spring, which is looking like that's gonna happen this year. The tributaries are probably gonna be a good start, for the spring. Coming to August, I catch fish in July. Last year I struggled because there's a very large population of alewives out there. And that is really, with the alewives, there's peaks of when these hatches are coming in, and we're at the high end of the alewife run. And so that kind of affects the fishing in early June and into July. I was snagging alewives into the beginning of August last year, which was that's never happened. But typically August is a good time. That is when the bite is really starting to turn on. And you could catch them in a lot of different ways. The wetter water temps kind of dictate where I'm fishing. And wind is a big thing out there. The other peak time is, I like the September, but I'm a lake guy. November, I love being out there in November, and I do a mixed bag of both things. A lot of my stuff is casting big rubber, big blades, and then obviously the troll bite. Depends on who's on the boat with me. If I'm having a tough day out there with the casters, sometimes I'll finish the day off with one good fish on a last half hour or hour of trolling, and it's helped save my day many times, But September, October, November, I fish until I can't launch the boat, so the ice keeps me off the water.
All right, Bob. These guys out here, they want to plan a trip. Mother Nature's most important. Well, you can't hardly plan your trip. All of you's probably done it. And I've told this people many a time at the lodge, well, you should have been here last week. So you can't plan it. But Bob, if you were going to advise them 2 different times that you should plan a trip there, and generally speaking, you're going to hit it good, what 2 times would that be?
Number one, I would definitely say opener, not necessarily on the Fox River. We've got tributaries all up that west shore. And we've also got some water up in Door County as well. You don't necessarily have to play bumper boats and combat fishing with, the rest of the yahoos on the Fox River. We do it every year anyhow. It's just tradition. We've been doing it for a dozen years now, so I've had my buddies come up and fish with me. So, but that opener definitely, and I would say if you want to get away from the crowds, any of those tributaries up that west shore are holding fish. The main thing you need to look at is, I would definitely say, take a look at the DNR stocking records to see which of those tributaries have been stocked the most. That's where I target, that's where I focus my efforts. You'll see that the Fox River, the reason why everybody's hitting the Fox is because that's the most heavily stocked tributary on the entire Green Bay watershed. So take a look at that and pick your poison. The other second point is, like these guys said, that summer casting bite. I'm not a troller. I love casting. So that summer bite for me is magic. And to anybody who wants to come up, I tell them peak is August to mid-September. You can't go wrong in that time frame. Sometime, whether it's early spring or late spring, fish are going to be going. Again, depends on weather. Those are the 2 primary areas that I focus on. But there's one in between too that I would say that not a lot of people fish, is that time frame in between that spawn and the casting bite. And those fish, again, they do scatter out into the bay, but there are some general thoroughfares that they follow that if you're observant, you can stay on these fish throughout that entire period. Now, I know these guys are on those fish, and I can count on probably one hand guides that will take you out in mid to late June to target muskies. They're not easy to catch, but there are some out there. And I love really hitting that because there's not a lot of people fishing it. You're out on some areas by yourself all day.
That's from where I've been there. That hasn't happened a lot for me. I've seen a lot of boats when I'm out there.
Yeah.
I see the videos that everybody posts at opener, and that looks pretty crazy there. It looks like I-294 in Chicago, all in one spot.
Not as many drive-bys though, Tony.
Yeah, there's not near
Not
as many
yet.
fights as I would think there would be out there.
Can I just make one point about
Yes,
that?
sir.
About combat fishing. And I know Kevin has talked about this in his seminars as well. And Aaron Stack is my PMTT partner and one of my best friends. we've been fishing a long time. What's the first thing I told you the night before we hit Green Bay on the Fox? I said, you're gonna see something that you can see, you're gonna get frustrated, you're gonna get mad, you're gonna wanna board another person's vessel and ram your fist down their throat, but what are we on the water?
Team Nice Boat.
TNG, Team Nice Guy. Team Nice Guy on the water. You see somebody cutting you off, you're working a shoreline or working an area for, say, 45 minutes, and all of a sudden somebody just comes in right in front of you and starts heading right at you. Fine. I don't need that 40-yard stretch. There's fish everywhere. Slide out, hey, how's the fishing going? Any luck today? Nope, okay, we'll slide out. You guys want in? Go ahead. Okay, it's that simple.
If more people followed that policy, there'd be less conflict.
Yes. And we see
People
conflict
actually
out
do
there.
that? They cut you off up there?
And remember, like, August, July, you're out in Pensaki, there are guys
With a
casting
fin.
muskie, Domaganos, there are guys casting muskie, trolling muskie,
And
jigging,
now-
casting walleye, and trolling walleye. And it ain't our water, it's everybody's water. And I saw this 7, 8 years ago, that we had 2 boats. I had Bruce and Val from down in Kentucky with me. We had 2 guys 4 cast lengths away from us jigging walleye, and here comes a guy trolling. I don't remember if he was trolling muskie or walleye, and he went between them. And I have pictures of the one guy whipping his trolling motor out of the water, and the other guy with the planer board snake on his muskie rod that was casting muskie, and that dude took a soda can upside the head. He literally trolled. I mean, these boats were from me to the back door, away from each other. The one guy casting muskie and the one guy jigging walleye, and the dude trolled right between them. It's
No
like,
wonder you call it combat fishing.
oh, yeah,
I'm starting to
yeah.
get it now.
Yeah.
It
Now
is
what
some
about
combat
sharpshooters?
fishing.
It's not an exaggeration.
it's not. It's
All
everybody's
right.
water.
Yeah, I got one thing on that. I mean, that's happened to me a bunch of times this year. I mean, you just have to, you just kind of have to deal with it. And I like the nice guy thing, you know. And I've always been a nice guy in the water. I'm always gonna, when coming head to head with the boat, I'm always going. I'm gonna go on out. If he wants out, I'm going in, whatever. But I'm always gonna take that gesture and move away from it. You know, this year, yeah, it's aggravating. I had several boats jump right literally in front of me, where I could bounce my lure off of their boat. Just running down a line, and out there, me and 2 other boats, and this guy just comes right up and right in front of me. Maybe they know me or something. They know what's up. So, but you know, the best place you could probably be is in the back of me, because the guy, you know, the boats behind me catch a lot of fish.
All right, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Let's go with this one. When I was there the first time, and I talked about that week that 100 anglers caught no fish. When I first got there, the water, you could see your bait down, I can't really remember, a foot or 2. And by the middle of the first day, when I was with Dennis, we couldn't see our bait, so it just about got to the surface. So, in my opinion there, since it's such big water, can be dirty water, you got wind and water clarity. Just briefly, because I know we can talk about this forever, but we've only got about 25 more minutes.
Everybody likes dirty water, but not that dirty
No.
water. The times
Right.
I was there, you couldn't see, you're trying to do a figure 8, you can't see down 2, 3
Well,
inches.
I'm used to that at Cape Brown when we fish the mud in the
Yep.
spring.
You know,
Yep.
and
You know.
that sucks.
So what do you do, Kevin, when you get there? What's the first things that you do when you know there's high wind, you know there's more dirty water? What's your game plan at that
All right, so I offer the Lambeau Field tour package where we go down.
point? You mean cocktail?
Yeah, so number 1, there's nowhere to hide on the bay. With the stocking, as Bob was saying, now being more scattered, you have more options. You can maybe go east, go west, but remember, we've had predominant wind from one direction. If it's a northeast wind, the water literally gets pushed to the west side. So you're going to lose a foot to 2 feet of water on one side compared to the other. Try and find clean water. It's going to be tough, but casting, I'm going to slow down, and it's going to be bigger stuff, and like, you know, like twitching a 10-inch slammer, mag dogs, that kind of thing, and working them slow, because where are these fish? They're not happy. You really need to get a bait in their face and leave it there. So something you can hang in front of them, like I said, like twitching a big crankbait would be good. Working rubber slow. Sometimes you can, if you rig your Red Octobers right, you can get them to hang real good in the water. So, you know, same thing with the dogs. So you really slow down in that stuff. And same thing there is, and please be careful out there. But yeah, and that just seems to help by like slowing down. You're a little more cognizant of what's going around you, watching that big water, watching for that seventh odd wave that always wants to come through and spin your boat around. Trolling. So I know people catch tons of fish out there in believers. I hate believers. But what I'm going to do in that crud situation, again, those fish are negative if they're not buried in the weeds. You know, in summer when the weather turns like that, now they're going to be out in the open water when we're trolling. By open water, I mean 12 feet of water, not deep open water. They're going to be laying on the bottom. So on my inside baits, I will literally take hooks off of believers, run them straight down on the bottom, jointed ones, and let them bang off the bottom all day. And that way the lips, they don't snag with the hooks, right? And then I'm going to get fish, the bait's right behind them. I'm going to have like a 6-inch deep slammer out, something like that, and that's what's going to get eaten. And what it was is those fish are so negative on the bottom that they don't want to eat. But now you have something that's the most annoying sounding thing in the world, a jointed believer, off the bottom, and they're like, what the heck was that? And here comes a foot above their head. Here comes another bait. And that's probably one of the best ways you're going to get bit. Otherwise, the other thing you can do too is run a bait 200 feet out with a cone bobber. If you look at Mark Martin, the old walleye guy, that was his thing with walleye baits, and they call it the tail gunner. Sarah did something on it. You run a 6-inch grandma, little slammer, anything like that, 200 feet out on they call it a cone bobber. You can use a big sucker bobber too, and that bait maybe a foot down, and it's barely moving, and you'll run all these aggressive baits by them, and they'll hit that stinking one way out there. And now you got to fish with 150, 200 feet of line out, have fun, because it is a blast. But that's what you got. When it gets cruddy like that, casting, big stuff, slow down, let it hang. Trolling, you got to beat the bottom up when they're sitting on the bottom.
All right, Jeff, what do you do when you look out there and it's windy or now and the water's all dirty?
Oh, the wind is a big factor, and how on a day-to-day basis it's forever changing. So you get that north-south wind, it kind of limits you on the areas that you can fish on, because it's just the gauntlet. And we go out there. I was out there with Bob, and we were in some treacherous water. He's got a video of me face planted on the boat, on the bottom of the boat. Thank God I had that new padding down there. So it gets rough out there. We get out there and we beat ourselves up in the big winds. Like everyone was saying, you got to be careful out there. You got to know what's going on. And sometimes it's unfishable. You know, you'll have to, fish. Maybe, on some bad wind days, you could tuck in up in Little Sturgeon, or do some stuff up in Georgian Bay up that way. There's just some days you just have to, it's not worth going out there, because it's very treacherous water out there. But then I also use that wind to my advantage. So the wind will push the fish, the bait, and everything else in certain, in certain areas. So if you're fishing like Pischke, and the wind, you're getting a south wind, I will position myself. I have to kind of figure out where the fish are at. Sometimes they'll be on the windy side or on the calm side, and it's not calm, but it's you let the fish tell you what to do. Sometimes I'm on the real windy side of it. Sometimes I'm on the other side. And then for every day, it's forever changing. You'll be out there, you'll be on a hot bite, you're on the south end of the pen, just for example, and the next day the wind changes, them fish are not there, So you have to constantly be thinking out of the box and changing and thinking about what the wind's doing, what the bait is doing, because I kind of key on what the bait is doing, kind of tells me where I want to fish.
All right, cool. When I talk about...
With the color, like he's saying, big rubber, I go with bigger blades. If I could see, a foot under the water, your 8s, your 9s, I'm very successful on the smaller baits. But when that water is so dirty, I go with bigger blades, get that vibration going on, and slow. Go, take your time a little bit more. You're not burning them bucktails like you want to. So just take your time, slow it down a little bit, and just dig in, and and hopefully it happens.
That's two things you and Kevin both have there in common, moving slow. When I was there that week, there was no fish caught in the bay.
guys that were, and I had never even been, we were restricted to like a little, I don't know how many acres it was there. What's the big
Lower
point?
Bay and the Fox
You
River.
were,
You couldn't go
little-
north.
weren't
you were
allowed to go
long
around.
tail to Point Sabo, so
Yeah.
like 3 miles up on the, 4 miles up on the, 3 on the west and 4 on the east. And and everything was still up towards Little Tail.
You know, but my point was that nobody was catching in the bay. Sarek was there filming, several guys there guiding, and by like Tuesday, after that water had changed, they had all moved north to those areas north where there was much clearer water and there was catching fish, and that's why I brought this question up. Bob, what do you got to add in about clarity and wind?
Wind, I like wind. I like waves. I like big waves.
Okay.
I prefer 2 to 3s. Fished in 4 pluses before. I would not recommend it. If you don't have experience on big water, hire a guide. If it's windy, you still got to be very, very cautious because people do die out there. And I'm not exaggerating. People do die out on the bay. And it happens more frequently than you'd think. In fact, a guy and his kids just passed last summer.
Those waves are different.
They are.
And you heard me
it's-
mention the 7th one. There's always an odd one.
Yep. And you'll get rogue waves out of nowhere, and Jeff can attest to that when we were fishing last year. Wave just came out of nowhere, and the whole boat, wham.
And that's on the big boat.
And that's on a big boat, bigger than mine. So what I'll typically do is, the main thing for me is options. Having options and having fished the entire watershed, knowing, as Kevin said, for the most part, if you're out in the bay proper, fishing those big shoals, the shark fin or pensaki, you don't have a lot of options. If you've got a straight west wind, okay, it's not going to be that bad. You've north-south, there's areas that I can go throughout the entire bay, tuck in. Door County is one of them. I'm hitting that a lot. Plus, when water gets mixed up, I'm always guaranteed clear water up there. And sometimes it's almost too clear. And I know you guys can attest, Lori and Gene have been up there quite a bit with a guide buddy of mine. It's gin clear. And you'll see a lot of fish. It's tough sledding sometimes, but there's still some up in there. So I've got some options. That's the main thing for me is any day of the week, no matter which way the wind direction is headed, there's some place in the bay I can go. And even if that means a tributary. Granted, during the summertime, most of those fish slide out of the tributaries after the spawn, but there are resident fish in all the tributaries that stay in there all year long. Is it a huge fishable population? Probably not, but it's better than risking your life.
There you go. All right, remember, guys, I want you to come up with some of your own questions. I'm going to kind of end the question thing here by asking Bob and Kevin. They've been on that water the longest. They've both been very active with the Muskies Inc., Muskie Clubs, all the people that help make Green Bay what it is. Kevin, I'll let you go first. What is your forecast for what's going to happen in the future? How green does the grass look on Green Bay in the next 20 years?
It's going to be good as long as we can keep up with the stocking and the proper fish handling. The fish are going to survive. We're getting into low water years again. We're getting back to that early 2000 to mid 2000s when you couldn't slide across the frying pan shoal because there was a foot of water on there. So what's going to happen now is we had the higher water the last 7 to 8 years. It's been dropping the last 2. So where you had 9 feet of water, now you had 13. So those weeds that were in 9 feet of water and became 13 weren't nearly as good because the light can't get down there. So where you had 3 feet of water, now you had 7, maybe. You had good weeds there. So as that's going to drop, the weeds are going to have to continue to move back out because where it was 9, it's going to be 5, 6. And so the weeds are going to be moving again. So that's going to be key, is just staying on top of that with the water levels dropping and be more cognizant of what you're going over out there because it is a lower unit record and it does kill people out there. But the water levels are really going to influence it. The water clarity, the cleanliness of the water, I should say the quality, has been so much better. That dredging project, even though it was a big pain in the butt for 13 years, they promised us 9, they ran her 13. It has tremendously helped with the water clarity. You see much better water out there. Guys are always like, I can't believe how green that water is. Take my coffee can, my pea can, scoop it up, you look in there, it's almost clear. That's why it's Green Bay. That water's a funky color, but the depth, I should say, the water levels are really going to affect that wheat growth, and you're just going to need to stay transitioning and follow that. I can go back to Ganos 15 years ago, and you had just the world's most beautiful line of weeds, and then the water went up and you had spot, super thick in here. So now that's going to be way too shallow and crud, and where the spots are right now is going to be those nice edges again. So that's going to be the thing to watch the most. Then that water clarity, like I said, the other thing where that water clarity can hurt you now is those fish do get a little spooky with the clear water. They're not quite as dumb as they used to be. Maybe I've just lost some of my smarts, but that's what I really see is, you know, the clubs are going to keep up. That's doing a great job. We need to keep pushing the etiquette and nicely teaching people how to release fish. I always talk about, you know, you got the walleye guy next to you, the smallmouth guy, you're up in Door County that hooks a muskie accidentally, and he's struggling with it because he doesn't have the tools, and you sit there and MF him and yell at him. Don't be that guy. Be the guy that's like, hey, you want me to run over? I got the net. I can show you how to get a good picture. We can measure it, and next thing you know, you treated the guy good, because you know what? If I'm fishing for something, I accidentally catch something else, and the guy that loves that starts yelling at me, you know what I'm going to do next time? I'm going to rip the gills out of it, right? I wouldn't do that, but so that etiquette, that stuff is going to do it. I'm really, you know, early on, it was like, I can remember back in the day, like, oh my gosh, we were all the way up by Longtail. Like, holy cow, we ventured up to Longtail. Now I'm like 30, 40 miles north of Longtail some days. Yeah. I really want to see what this, because that was because where did we stock everything early? Everything went in the Fox River, because we didn't know any different. They didn't know any different back the way. So that's why it was the frying pan shoal in September, it was Bay October, November, and then it was the river even October, November. And now they're everywhere. So you have just as many fish on the bay, they're more scattered, and I'm really hoping to see those populations, and I do a lot up in Door County, that take off further north. Marinette, Menominee always been good, but it gets pressured, but there's so much between there. I just want to see those areas flourish, so our fishing is maybe, instead of being like, you know, peak on the lower bay, how it used to be, then die off, peak on the wheat beds during the summer. I'd like to see it stay like this all over the bay, where you just have a constant steady, there's always a population of fish scattered, and I think that is going to happen. It's just, the biggest thing that's going to influence are these water levels. It's going to stink the next probably 5 to 10 years, and I think after that, because if you watch the bay over the years, you look at all the commercial fishermen who keep great records, you got to get to know them guys, and they'll show you, and it's a 20-year cycle on the bay. So just stay on top of it.
All right, Bob, what's your prediction?
Well, I'll just give you guys some stocking numbers to begin with on the bay. This past October, a lot of members and myself of Titletown Muskies Inc. went to the Wild Rose Hatchery and fin clipped 15,995 fish. And those were stocked out in the bay this past October, all throughout the entire watershed. Whereas they used to actually just stock in some key areas only. Again, through the help of myself and some other guides, have been giving them some other spots where we're seeing where fish have been paired up. We know they're there, so we're doing some studies there and stocking elsewhere throughout the entire watershed. Overall, since 1989, we've had 221,981 fingerlings stocked. We capture the fish in the spring. We take the eggs and the milk out of the females and males respectively, and we fertilize them at the launch and then send them over to the hatchery to be reared and stocked later that fall. Those are the fingerlings. A portion of those are actually overwintered, and those are called yearlings. Fingerlings they average about 11 inches, and the yearlings average 13 plus inches. Those have a much higher survival rate than the smaller fingerlings, but still we are limited insofar as the amount of space we have for rearing them in the hatchery. So, but we've had 41,533 yearlings that have been overwintered and stocked in the Green Bay over the years. In fact, we had a record year of yearlings stocked just 2 years ago. So we had over 7,500 of those fish stocked, which was, you know, amazing. So that's awesome. So overall, we've had 263,514 fish stocked in the bay. Those are muskies. So that's looking good. Are we where we need to be right now, or where we'd like to be? Absolutely not. But again, we're limited insofar as the amount of stocking space we've got in the hatcheries. My Titletown chapter, we actually put in a 4-year commitment to the Wild Rose Hatchery. They've got fish rearing tanks. Oh, they had 8 before, we got them 8 brand new ones. So we're, you know, most of those are actually for walleyes, unfortunately, but we've actually more than doubled, I think almost tripled the amount of space we've got for muskies now. So that's a positive. So overall, I think the future looks bright. It's just a matter of us staying with it and still working very closely with the biologists as well as the researchers to get smarter about where we're stocking them. And again, like Kevin had mentioned, we had that dredging project. We're starting to see weeds come up, even on the Fox River. The Fox had been, it's a cesspool, quite frankly. But a lot of PCBs and pollution from the paper manufacturing along that 7-mile stretch for a lot of years. The federal government came in and said, you guys need to clean this up. So we had a long project. They've done a lot of habitat restoration as well. There's a lot more coming as well on not just the Fox River, but on the Lower Bay. There's a number of large projects that are going on right now. They've already, completed some of those. They're adding new woody structure in the Fox River. They're adding new islands, shoals, riprap up towards the dam. They're doing a lot of stuff out in the bay, reestablishing some of the marshland. So getting some new vegetation in there to not just benefit muskies, but the entire ecosystem. So that's looking good. So right now, as far as what we're hearing from the DNR and what we're seeing from the hatcheries and the amount of involvement we've got from a lot of the muskie clubs, I'm saying it's looking pretty good.
The only thing I can add to that is, in my years of being in this, people need to get involved in clubs.
Absolutely.
Whether they do outings or go to meetings, they need to get involved in the fundraising. The clubs can need the dues. And I've noticed over the last 10 years, clubs starting to dip. But some of the clubs are starting to rise again. And it's very important that you get involved with one of your local clubs. But anyway, who's got a question for us? Right there in the front.
How long are these fish living and how fast are they growing?
Depends on when you ask. If you would have asked before 2019, the biologist would have told you we'll never see a world record in Green Bay because these fish grow too fast and they just burn out. That's what we were told by the head biologist. However, since 2019, we've been actually doing a lot of studies. I know Jeff Van der Mortel was in here talking. He had a couple fish did not survive, especially the really, really big ones. Those, unfortunately, they perish, but we're able to get great data from them because what we do is we send them either up to LAX or whomever. They take that clythrin bone out and they send it out to the DNR and they can actually age these fish. Now, whereas the old biologists thought that, hey, these fish don't get more than like 19, 20 years max maybe, we had a 57 that was popped in 2019 that was aged at 28 years. Now that means that that fish was stocked within the first 3 year classes ever on Green Bay. We started in 1989. We've had 55s that are 26 years old. We've had a 56 that didn't survive that was only 18. Now that's crazy, an 18-year-old 56-incher. So thing is, what we're finding now is that these fish are actually growing, they're able to live longer than we had anticipated. The original hypothesis has kind of been blown out of the water. So now we know these fish can live that long. Plus they've got indeterminate growth. So they grow until they die and stop eating. So I'm very confident there is a world record swimming around somewhere in Green Bay, somewhere. Will it ever come up on the shoals or will we ever have a shot at it? Who knows? But I'm confident that there's one out there. We've been stocking for how long? And we've had some fish that have been living since the first couple of year classes? No doubt.
Oh, it makes sense.
And
Who's
that
got a
was-
question there?
I
You right
just
there.
want to add something real quick on that. So in the whole reproduction thing, they used to tell us too that because those fish grew so fast and so quick, that they never matured sexually to catch up to their growth.
Yep.
Kind
And
of
that-
like you.
Like me, and that's what they always blame no natural reproduction on, and we've blown that out of the water and found out that it's a terrain topography thing,
Absolutely.
not the fish growing.
Water clarity, all that stuff, pH, slope, you name it.
Would you give me a question right there?
Yep.
Me?
The heavy drinker.
Yes. Where'd they stock those Georgian Bay fish?
Those Georgian Bay fish were brought back into Green Bay.
Where'd they stock them in the bay?
Those were initially stocked down in the river.
Yeah, those were initially brought back
That was
into
very
Fox River.
early
That's
on.
Fox River and the Lower Bay is where we initially started everything. So those Georgian Bay fish, again, you got the same strain of fish, Georgian Bay, Lake St. Clair.
Leech Lake.
Nope, those are not. Those are a different strain. St. Lawrence River, Green Bay, those are all the same Great Lakes spotted muskies. But those were initially stocked. The ones we got from all over the place, those were brought to the Lower Bay and the Fox River.
Hey, Bob, I got a question I'm curious about. You said they had them radio tagged. What's the furthest that you've seen any of them travel?
Which is, it's kind of insane because the data is actually available for anybody who wants to check it out online. The master's theses that these graduate students did, they have to publish those. We've had some fish that were stocked in the Fox River caught on Pensaki Shoal, then went up to the Menominee River, then out to Chambers Island, then over to Door County, then back down to the Lower Bay, back up into the Fox River, all over the place, one fish. And then we see another fish, never left the Lower Bay all year, never went into the Fox, never went above Point Sable and Longtail Point. So there is no, I guess, hard, fast rule for it. They all go here, then they all go there, or they all travel all over. Wherever they can find a food source that's readily available and they're comfortable, there's fish that stay in the Fox River and all these tributaries all year long. So,
I get it. Who's got a question for us out there?
There, also, there was one tagged in the North Channel. That was stocked in like the Fox River.
we did have one that was actually a Green Bay fish that was caught in Sheboygan Bay, which is in lower Michigan on the other side. So C-H-E Boygan, not S-H-E.
Sheboygan.
Yeah, Sheboygan. But we had one of our fish that was pit tagged, and they pit tagged it and found out that was one of our Green Bay fish. So they can go all over. And the thing is, these radio tag fish, we've got 60 of them swimming around, or not quite 60, some of them perish, but we've got over 180 different points throughout the entire bay, where anytime a fish gets within a quarter mile of these, it's a station that basically picks up these transmitters, and it'll ping. So we can tell certain fish, we can pick one fish, we can see exactly where he went, north, south, anytime he's going past these transmitters, we can figure out where they're going.
Nice. We got our last question for us? All right, these guys, yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, those 15,000 fish you tagged, how big were those?
11 inches on average.
How long did it take you to do that?
2 days. We had we brought a lot of folks in to do that, a lot of volunteers, plus a lot of DNR folks were there. This is the first year in a long time they've actually kind of asked us to get more involved as well, because that's one thing we've been working very heavily on is building that relationship with the biologists and letting them know that, hey, if you need more help, we've got the manpower. So that's how they were able to do that.
You have an estimate on the survival rate of those, I guess?
All they have are models, and the models are I don't say arbitrary. They're based on science, but we've got 1.04 million acres in the Green Bay watershed, which you got Lake of the Woods is 1 million acres. How many fish are in Lake of the Woods, and what's the survival rate? Nobody can tell. We have heard some estimates that maybe up to 40% of those fingerlings will survive, up to 40%. And then if you release them at the yearling stage, the survival rate goes up 80% above that. Now, whether those are still accurate, these are years ago I heard these from biologists, so,
All right, you guys did an excellent job. I hope you found out some of the questions, some interesting stuff about Green Bay. Jeff will be down the Chaos booth. Kevin's working the Lakewood booth, and Bob is bouncing around all over. I'm sure they're happy to answer any questions for you. So let's give them a little applause for this.
One quick thing before we go, I want to throw out there with the water levels, I didn't brush on this, but remember, those little tributary launches, Pensaki, do not power load there. There's a huge washout, and we're us tandem axle guys, whoever has them, you're going to be hanging your trailer over that washout pretty quick. Please be careful. And then remember, Gano's is private, and they spend a lot of money dredging that out, and you cannot power load in there, and people will argue that sign, but please remember, on those little tributaries, do not be power loading in those, because it's going to get ruined, and we're going to
Spread
lose
the
that
word,
right.
please,
So
yes.
please, it sucks cranking big boats up, but that's what you got to do.
Excellent job, guys. Don't forget to sign up for my giveaway.
The title's just
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Biology.
Howdy.